I'm Mayor Melvin Carter of Minnesota's capital city, St. Paul. Amid the many challenges communities across our nation face, we are proud to be part of the city's Race to Zero. Here in St. Paul, we are committed to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% over the next decade and becoming a net zero community by 2050.
I'm Anna Hansen, Santa Fe County Commissioner in New Mexico. It is a natural next step for us to join ICLEI's 150 in the Race to Zero and to accelerate our action and build momentum to the global climate neutrality. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, and I'm proud to say that the City of Hoboken is an enthusiastic participant in the Race to Zero. The City of Hoboken knows firsthand that climate change is real, and we need to take bold action now to protect future generations.
I'm the mayor of the city of San Jose, America's 10th largest city here in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm proud to be part of the ICLEI 150 Race to Zero.
I'm Melanie Piana, mayor for the city of Ferndale. I'm proud Ferndale is included in ICLEI's Cities Race to Zero. By participating in ICLEI's campaign, we are joining a global movement to chart a path to climate neutrality by 2050.
Greetings. I'm Linda Slocum, President of Oberlin City Council. Oberlin remains committed to reaching our goals related to greenhouse gas emissions, and we are grateful for ICLEI's leadership in this crucial.
Hi, I'm Joy Cooper, Mayor of the City of Hallandale Beach. We are taking climate change seriously by joining the city's Race to Zero and committing Hallandale Beach to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and achieving net zero emissions by 2050.
Hi, I'm Mayor Stephen Phillip of Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm proud to be a part of this global call to action to promote a healthier, cleaner, more resilient environment now and for our future generations to come. The critical actions we're taking today as leaders in our individual communities will pay off exponentially in our collective efforts to the worldwide Race to Zero.
Hello, this is Mayor Stephen B. Grant from the City of Boynton Beach, and we in the City of Boynton Beach are pledging to reduce greenhouse emissions with the ICLEI 150 Race to Zero.
Hi, I'm Mayor Lauren Poe from the City of Gainesville, Florida, home of the Florida Gators. Our city is proud to be part of the Race to Zero City Challenge. In Gainesville, we are committed to setting bold targets that will put our city on the path to climate neutrality. Together, we can create a decarbonized economy and resilient community.
Hello everyone, this is Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak. I'm thrilled to welcome all the United States cities, towns, and counties and states attending COP26 in Glasgow. I couldn't attend in person, but I'm proud that Nevada has sent some of our most climate-dedicated representatives, including 2 members of my cabinet, leading our efforts to address climate change in Nevada. I also wanted to extend a welcome to COP26 and my appreciation to a leading member of Nevada's federal delegation, U.S. Senator Jackie Rosen. I'm proud to see the U.S. represented at COP26 by all levels of government. It's a testament to the collaboration needed to address the climate crisis and the tremendous opportunity before us. The growing impacts of climate change are being felt in all corners of Nevada, impacting public health, threatening our natural resources, and challenging the vibrancy of our communities and economy. Nevada is taking a bold action to tackle climate change while moving quickly to capture the economic benefits of the clean energy revolution, including creating good-paying jobs and sustainable communities throughout the state. One of my first actions upon becoming governor in 2019 was issuing Nevada's first ever executive order on climate change, which led to the creation of the Nevada Climate Initiative in our state's first ever comprehensive climate strategy. I'm proud that Nevada's cities and counties are also hard at work addressing climate change at the local level. Earlier this year, Clark County, home of the world-famous Las Vegas, adopted All in Clark County, the county's first comprehensive sustainability and climate action plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. The city of Reno is also hard at work, guided by their sustainability and climate action plan adopted in 2019. In addition, the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, tasked with preserving and enhancing Lake Tahoe, known as one of the world's most spectacular lakes, is a long-recognized leader for their Sustainability Action Plan. These examples of coordinated action at all levels of government are key to achieving the greenhouse gas reduction and sustainability goals that science demands and that residents of our state deserve. I welcome the renewed partnership we have with President Biden and his cabinet whole-of-government approach to tackling the climate challenge. Nevada is working closely with federal agencies to address the growing impacts of climate change in the Silver State. Our efforts in Nevada have been further enhanced by the close working relationships I've built with my fellow governors who are also members of the U.S. Climate Alliance. These partnerships are vital in reaching both Nevada's and the United States' ambitious climate goals. I would like to thank Local Governments for Sustainability, ICLEI, for the invitation to welcome you to COP26 and to set the stage for today's panel moderated by the Director of my Governor's Office of Energy, David Bobzin. I thank all of you for helping drive climate action at COP26 to foster a brighter, more sustainable future for our children and our grandchildren who deserve our steadfast leadership to protect our planet. Thank you.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Governor Sisolak for those welcoming remarks and kicking off our panel where we're going to explore the importance of multi-level action in the United States context. And we have a fantastic panel here of local government officials that, and including one state legislator, that have all been working very hard and have the commitment. And I'm pretty sure at some point recently, maybe even further back, maybe say 4 years ago, came to understand that unless they were committed to action at their level where they sat, we would not be able to address the climate challenge before us. So today, we have with us Colorado Senator Faith Winter. Senator, good to see you. We have Commissioner Bridget Shea, Travis County, Texas. Hello. We have Mayor Rick Kreisman from the city of St. Petersburg. Hello. And we have Mayor Frank County from the city of Des Moines. Hello. And my name is David Bobzin, as the governor introduced. And I feel very lucky and fortunate to be here with you because I think, as I mentioned a few of you as we met before the panel, I too have some experience and background at the local government level and the legislative level, having served at the city of Reno on the city council as well as in the state assembly. But I want to kick this off and hear from each of you. This is sort of your chance to do an intro. I want to hear what you're bringing to COP, what you're hoping to discuss, what you're hoping to present to the world, what you're hoping to offer. And in particular, what 3 words would you characterize as what it is you're bringing to COP? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. I'm going to put you on the spot. But don't worry about it. You don't need to wear these, and you're going to have enough time because I'm going to send the microphone down to you. But Mayor Levine Cava is from Miami-Dade County. And so, Mayor, we're going to start with you once I send this down to you. But the question is, in 3 words, what is it you're hoping to bring to COP? If you go to 4, that's okay too. But I'm going to send the mic down, and we'll start with you, and then we'll bring it all the way back. Thank you.
I'll run it over.
Optimism, curiosity, and hope.
Excellent. Thanks so much for everyone for being here. What I want to bring is reduction, justice, and transition. Because when we talk about addressing climate, we have to reduce our greenhouse gases, but that's not enough. We need to also center environmental justice and disproportionately impacted communities and make sure that those communities are being taken care of and benefiting. And then we have to talk about a just transition and how do we take care of those workers and those communities that have long relied on the fossil fuel industry for their well-being. It's not just enough to create energy efficiency jobs and solar jobs when that coal miner in Craig, Colorado doesn't have anywhere to go. So we have to do just transition, environmental justice, and reducing greenhouse gases.
I knew you couldn't keep us at 3 words, but there is so much to say about this. I would say urgency, community preparedness, and honest conversations. We have to start getting real with our residents about the impact that climate change will have on them so that they can be better prepared. As long as we're not telling them the truth about how it's going to impact them, they're not going to know what to do to be better prepared.
So my 3 words, I'll start with collaboration. We can't do it alone as a city. We've got to have the partners of the other municipalities that are in my county, along with our county, and along with all the other counties and cities within the entire Tampa Bay region. Ambitious. I think we ought to set our goals high and don't set them artificially low and shoot for something easy. Let's be very ambitious in the goals that we set, and let's strive to hit them. And you stole my word, urgency. Living in a city that is surrounded by water and has been deemed one of the most at risk for sea level rise in the country, it's urgent to us that this be addressed and be addressed now.
Multi-level commitment, multi-level plans, multi-level action.
Very good. Well, that's wonderful. And Mayor Kreisman, I love that you mentioned collaboration, because this next question really speaks to that. You all sit in unique jurisdictional situations. You all have different dynamics on the ground, as it were, as we've discussed, in terms of dealing with other jurisdictions in your region, in your universe. But what does coordination across all levels for your community or agency look like? And thinking about the place where you sit in your jurisdiction, what is it that you need from others? And think big. Think of all of the levels here. And I'll start again with the mayor.
Say it again. I'm sorry. Do you collaborate with different levels? Oh, yes. So I heard First Minister Sturgeon answer your question earlier today about basically what would it look like if women were in charge. And just to say that there's more of a tendency to collaborate, to negotiate, to share, right, in successes. So I would say, what would it look like? There'd be more women. Okay, that's one thing. But in truth, men can do it too. And I think it's basically, there's a quote that I like very much, which is, to get to common ground, you have to go to higher ground. And literally, we have to go to higher ground. So I think if we can really build on that notion that the world is no longer fighting about the existence of the science of climate change. So we have definitely bypassed that hurdle. And now we're at the solution phase. So if we can envision that world, what does it look like? How do we get there? And what is everybody's piece of it?
Excellent. I'll just echo the more women piece. And it's actually been studied that women legislators are more likely to carry legislation on climate change, and are more likely to pass legislation on climate change, in part because we come to this office, whether as actual mothers or mothers of our community, and are looking towards the future and not just winning one campaign or one policy solution. And so that, I think, is very important. But when we're talking about collaboration, we all need to take that urgency and turn that into action. At the state level, I get to control things like the budget for the Colorado Department of Transportation. And transportation is the #1 carbon emitter. But the reason that it's such a big carbon emitter is because of land use planning. And that goes to all my wonderful local elected officials that I partner with in how do we collaborate together, where I'm funding public transit, multimodal, but how are they doing the land use planning to make sure we're using that money in a way that reduces carbon? And so we all need to work together because it will take all of us with urgency, with determination to actually solve this problem.
Such wise words, and I agree. I do think certainly being a mother and thinking about the future my children would face was a big motivator for me to go back into elective office at the county level with the intent of trying to better prepare people for what was coming. And collaboration is absolutely essential, and it's made harder in Texas because we have a state government that is in active denial about almost anything related to science. They're denying the vaccines. Exactly. We share that pain. So we have such a difficult job when we're actively fighting our state legislature, and they literally punish us every time we try and pass some kind of an effort locally to better prepare people or better protect people. So the collaboration gets really hard when you have a hostile state government, essentially. But we have to find workarounds constantly. But I really do think that the majority of the population, when you look at lots of different polling, you see this as well. The majority of the population is concerned about the impacts of climate change, and they want the leaders to do something about it. So I think regardless of what our state elected officials or legislatures are like, we still have a duty at the local level. And I believe we will be held accountable by our residents to take the actions necessary to better prepare them and better protect them.
So you're hearing some common themes, I notice, aside from the power of women. And I do agree with that. But one of the other themes that you're hearing is how state government can absolutely prevent you from making meaningful policy that impacts climate change. So I'm going to, before I even get into that, I'm going to talk about way it works where it works well. In our area, there's something called the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. And that is a group of all of the counties in the Tampa Bay area and the market and the cities in there that have all come together and said, we have to do something. And we all have to be on the same page and have the same vision and be moving in the same direction. And if we do that, we can make meaningful change and impact on our community. And so that's where that collaboration that we're all talking about, which is another common theme, is so important now. Where it doesn't work in the state of Florida is when we have a legislature and a governor who not only don't like policy or believe in science, but then they preempt us on things like trying to put in ordinances that require in new multifamily and in new office developments that they are EV ready and that the infrastructure is in place. And when we're prevented from even putting policies like that in place, how do we make progress? Now I will also talk about the federal government for a minute. And we're all, I don't mean to speak for my colleagues up here, but I imagine we're all excited about Build Back Better, about the infrastructure plan, about the possibility of seeing energy efficiency conservation block grants funded, because we can only do so much with the resources that we have available. But if we had additional resources, man, we could do great things to really move the needle. And one other thing I'll say about my state, and then I'll turn it over to Frank, is, if your whole focus is all about adaptation, and it's important to spend money on adaptation, you're going to spend a whole lot more if you're spending nothing on mitigation and you're not starting to make that change that really impacts us on the levels of CO2 and everything else we're doing as it relates to climate.
I agree with everything that has been said. Everything from women to collaboration, but I think the collaboration issue has to go farther and deeper. I mean, we saw what we were able to do, and we could brag about it a little bit. There was 4 years prior to the last one that were a bit of a struggle. And for those of us that attend these kinds of events, I remember attending one of these COPs and somebody said, "What are you even doing here? Your country is pulled out." And I said, "We're local government, we're mayors. We've got over 500 of us that are still in." And we made that commitment and we've been working on it. Now, there's a lot of things that we need to do, but that collaboration that we're talking about, multi-level levels of government, from the federal government to the state government, to the counties, to the cities, it's all of us working together with private business and others to make things happen. We have to study the science that has been discussed up here. Everybody has to understand it. This isn't a political game we're playing. The science is clear. The UN has released a report and others around the world. We are in a climate emergency globally. And we have to do everything that we can do to collaborate and all of us work together to make positive things happen. Our city, for instance, we've committed to a 24/7, 365 day a year, all renewable energy electric grid in Des Moines by 2035. Now that's us working together with business, putting solar on roofs, doing other stuff with our energy provider. We're about 83% there. But I got to tell you, that last 17% is going to be a little rough because there's a commitment of some, until we find ways to store and do renewables, that they're still going to have backup. And of course, we know what that looks like. It's carbon powered. We have to move off of that, and we have to move off of it soon. We have to look at, as has been discussed here, how we move people around. Let's prepare for EVs and make sure that our parking ramps in the city of Des Moines, even on the streets, in the buildings, they have to be prepared to supply and charge those EVs moving forward, because that'll help on the transportation side. But again, we have to make plans, and my circumstances in Des Moines are different. I mean, I'm in the middle of the plains. I'm out there in the center of the United States. And what happens there? We don't have any oceans, no hurricanes, no anything. Oh, wait a minute. Since 2008, we've had 5 episodes of exceeding 500-year flood levels. In addition to the fact that in 2018, in 3 hours, we got 10 inches of rain. And last year, we had a flatline storm that came through Iowa. And again, I mentioned to these guys, I learned a new word, derecho. It's an inland hurricane. We saw wind speeds up to 130 miles an hour in Des Moines, Iowa. I've got to tell you, it's happening everywhere across our country. Nobody is exempt. We're all part of it. The climate emergency is upon us. We've got to commit. We've got to plan. We've got to move to action, and we got to find partners to help us fund the improvements to be made.
Thank you, Mayor. And we certainly heard, and we have heard some emerging themes, but I think we have a lot still to cover with some of those themes. And at the outset, Commissioner Shea, I really liked what you threw down, which was we have to be real with our residents. And it strikes me that, and we are still in the context of COVID and the pandemic, and so much of the lessons learned, I hope, when all is said and done, will really be on the electeds in terms of how they dealt with being real with their constituents. And that certainly applies to climate. But with that, there's fatigue. And I think we've discussed that a little bit as well. And so I'd love to hear from each of you. How are you able to be real with your residents related to the impacts, the work that needs to happen at the local level, while keeping that fatigue at bay? How do you approach that? And I'm gonna keep our usual order here. Thanks.
You know, I've been saying for the last couple of days at COP26 that I am meeting colleagues whose communities are maybe more informed and more willing to take action than some of us in Florida are, even though our challenges are greater. So I do think that we have some workarounds. You know, I'm going to be real. We have some workarounds. We talk about welcoming people to come and help us solve our problems. Like, this is innovative. Come on down, be part of the solution. We talk about a job generation and, blue-green economy, which, is definitely real. So we talk about it in optimistic economic terms, because we're definitely going to make lemonade out of these lemons. So that is a big part of how we talk about it. And I know there is definitely controversy about scaring people, because fear can be debilitating. It can be very motivational, but it can also be debilitating. So, finding ways to tell the truth, but give people hope that there are things that we can do with these challenges, that we can benefit while we're working our way through it. There are sobering conversations to have, like insurance, like real estate, long-term real estate values. I mean, these are very real. I heard very sobering yesterday from a gentleman who evaluates that risk for investors, that Miami-Dade is maybe viewed more favorably than some of the other coastal communities, because we're actually doing something, because we have money to do it. So again, that was kind of sobering, because people do want to live in Florida. They do want to be on the ocean. So, they're willing to kind of say, oh, good, you're helping with raising your infrastructure or building more pumps or all the different things that we're doing. And that creates some optimism. So that's what we do. We tell the truth and we remain optimistic, because we are doing things and we know that there is a market for what we've got. And of course, it's the young people. I just want to go, I don't know, young people listening, watching, clearly they are the ones that are the prime advocates, consumers, demanding action. Because for them, it's not just kind of getting through. It's actually their future and what they'll inherit.
So I say this as a scientist. I was an environmental management major. The truth doesn't always set you free, right? And what we actually have to do is connect with hearts and minds, and we do that through storytelling. Because when I bring my stories of my community and my family to the table, and my constituents bring their stories of their family and their community to the table, that's where you actually find shared values that you can use to motivate people to action. And so when I talk about climate, I talk about our whole state. We've had forest fires. It's devastated our economy. It's impacting agriculture. But I also talk about my dad, who's recovering from a lung injury. And Denver had the worst air quality in the world at one point this summer. And I knew how bad our air was based on if my dad could walk across the house or not, because he was on oxygen. My daughter runs cross country, and she had a very truncated season because so many of her practices were canceled because her developing lungs and the lungs of her teammates couldn't be outside in our air. And so there's the macro level, and then there's a very human level of my daughter being sad and crying because she can't go to her cross country practice, right? And that's the values. And when my constituents tell me their stories, and I say, that is why I go down to the Capitol and fight every single day to make sure we are taking the collective action that we need to address this issue. And so telling stories, being vulnerable, and motivating us all to action, because this is a team sport and we all have to act together.
That's fabulous, really fabulous. I frequently run into a situation where my friends will say, can we please change the subject? This is horribly depressing. I mean, how many of you have had this experience? Right. So I've really worked hard to try and figure out how to talk to people about it. And one of the things I say is, particularly talking about preparedness, that if you were taking your kids to the lake to go swimming, you wouldn't throw them in the water before you made sure that they either knew how to swim or they had a floaty, right? That's preparedness. Just knowing what to do and anticipating what you're going to need. And I also tell people, I think humans are wired for survival. I think it's in our DNA. We survived the Ice Age. Come on. So I think we did. There were humans that made it through the Ice Age. So we are able to survive, but we also have to be prepared. And so I just think that's a really important part of the conversation. But the other thing people need to know is to connect the dots. A big part of the immigration issues at the southern border are because of climate change. The people fleeing Syria because of the civil war was the genesis was climate change. The droughts in the agricultural areas of Syria forced all those people into the cities with no job, nowhere to live. And climate change can be incredibly politically destabilizing, in addition to personally destabilizing, and people need to be prepared. So when I talk about it in those terms, people are kind of in agreement that they need to be prepared, even though it's kind of scary and unnerving. But I just think that's a huge part of what we have to do.
I think some of it is how in your face it is. And by that, what I mean is, depending on your city or your county, or in some cases your state, it's easy to get people motivated because it is in their face, whether it's storms that you spoke of, or for example, in my city, we have neighborhoods that right now experience 7 events a year where they have flooding that is not related to any storm. And we have a recent report that's come out by one of our professors at USF Marine Sciences in conjunction with some professors from University of Hawaii that says that in roughly 10 years, those same neighborhoods are going to experience not 7, but 70 incidents of flooding that's not storm related. And so that's in their face. If you live in those neighborhoods, itch in your face, you have to be concerned about it. But not every community or state has it where it's in their face to that degree. And so as some of my colleagues here have talked about, it's how we discuss it. One of the things in St. Pete that we've done, and I give a lot of credit to my director of sustainability and resilience, Sharon Wright, she created, working with us, integrated sustainability action plan that doesn't just talk about what we're going to do as far as, mitigation and adaptation, but it also addresses issues of justice, social justice, and healthcare, and equity. And those are issues of resilience and sustainability and climate change also. And so if we talk about those issues, I think we get the attention of people who it's not hitting them in the face every day. And so the language we use is going to be really important in how we get people to stay motivated and focused on addressing climate change.
The conversation, often you have multiple conversations with the same people. So the story can't always be the same, because pretty soon they turn you out, and they go, I've heard that before. So whether it's climate change and extreme events, or it's pandemics, or it's other things, we find ways, at least, because those of us, by the way, at the local level, our citizens see us every day. They see us in the grocery store. They see us walking down the street. They see us at meetings, and they don't hesitate and say, oh, that's the mayor, I better not talk to him. It's like, Mayor, I got some problems. I know you probably hear this all the time, but you know what? And then they launch into their own, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, here we go again. But engaging them in ways that discusses all these issues. You talk about the kids, how it affects them. You talk about their parents, how it may affect them or their grandparents. You talk about what happens and how this weather and these extreme cycles, how it affects our infrastructure, whether it's our streets or it's our sewer, or it's our water, or it's our levees, or it's whatever, or it's our parks. You need to have multiple conversations to engage people in multiple ways, so that in every way that you talk to them, they begin to say, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I think I finally get it. But some people, it takes lots of conversations. Some people get it really quick. And some people, and especially I got to tell you, the younger people get it much quicker sometimes than the older people. And so I find, especially with older people, you've got to hit some points that they've experienced in their life and say, oh yeah, I remember that. That happened, you know, when I was this age or that age or under this circumstance or that. But I think that we have to have a plethora of information that is connected to the issues that we have to work on. And we have to work on ways to present it. And we have to get it out there. And quite frankly, back to the urgency, we have to get it out quick, because we can't wait another 5 years to be thinking about it. Like I said to begin with, we got to move to action. The planning and the commitment and the, hey, I think I get it. All right. We've moved to a scary scenario to it's happening right here, right now. We need to do something about it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, 5 generations from now, they may see a planet that we wouldn't recognize.
So Senator Winter, when you were talking about your own experience this summer with Denver having the worst air quality in the nation, I wanted to say, oh yeah, city of Reno, Nevada was also pretty horrible this summer. And your story about your daughter missing her cross-country practices, that really hit me. And it hit me because my own daughter had to miss a couple of weeks of soccer practices because of the air quality. And so that gets to the motivation for the mothers to act, for the parents to act, and this recognition that future generations, what is the planet going to look like, and this new normal that everyone keeps saying. And I don't like hearing new normal, because it's not going to continue at this level. It's going to get worse without that action. And I'm so thankful and grateful that all of you are here to share with the world your personal perspectives, about what you hear from your constituents when they stop you in the grocery store and want to talk to you about it, and your own challenges, whether it's sea level rise, whether it's derecho events, whether it's air quality, the challenges that we have in the West. And I hope, and I know that you will have so many countless conversations here at COP about your personal experiences with the risks and what's happening and how we're already seeing this. But I also want to embrace a term that was used earlier, and that was hope. The fact that we also have our own perspective on hope, and we also see our own opportunities before us in our local communities. And so I'd like to issue a closing question on that front, is share something of hope from your community, whether it was an initiative, whether it was a someone changed their mind conversation that you had about climate change, or something that you see on the horizon in your community that you think will contribute to the global effort to combat climate change.
I think I've used that word hope a few times in my remarks. And honestly, walking into this COP26 was very hopeful for me, not having been part of previous COP conversations, and just seeing the momentum and the unity of purpose, and the pressure from cities, local communities on national agenda, and business community coming along. So it's feeling very hopeful to me. That to be said, what gives me the most hope is the young people, and the earnestness and the restlessness, the demand for real answers and accountability and real action. That's, because a lot of what we've done collectively is state goals without plans and without execution. So I find the engagement of young people who will not sit by and accept that BS from us very refreshing and very hopeful.
I'm relentlessly optimistic. I don't know any other way to be than to just show up and keep trying, and keep making a difference. I've been working on climate issues since 2004. And what gives me hope is the conversation has drastically changed, right? In 2004, we could only talk about the economy. And now, driven by the passion of young folks, driven by the urgency, driven by it being in your face all the time, the conversation has changed. And so what's giving me hope and optimism is that now everyone's at the table. So I mentioned Colorado's Office of Just Transition. We're one of the first in the country that's really looking at what happens when we close down coal plants. And Pueblo, Colorado is a very industrial city built on a steel mill, had some coal plants, and we just shut that down and we didn't lose a single job. And we managed to transition those jobs. And it was hard, and it took resources and it took investment. And we also figured out the property tax issue because the coal plant paid a lot of property tax that kept things like the library open. And so being creative only happens when everyone's at the table, because then we have the diversity of ideas to actually solve these problems. And so everyone at the table, the diversity of ideas, the changing conversation, and the young people give me a lot of optimism.
Can you talk to Joe Manchin? Seriously, seriously, that would be helpful. I don't think so. I'm also relentlessly optimistic because I've been doing this for 33 years. And despite of my friends saying, can you change the subject? This is depressing. I continue to hope that we will take the action that we need to take to save ourselves. So I want to show an infographic of something that we did at Travis County in Austin, Texas. We basically took the lesson from the pandemic, because I think this is true. Show of hands, did everybody at the start of the pandemic basically take their laptop from the office and go home and work from home? Right. So for all the people who said, oh, wide scale telecommuting will never work, we proved them wrong. Or people who said, oh, employees who telecommute are going to sit at home and watch TV and not do their work, we proved them wrong. So we took the lesson from the pandemic and we adopted a policy goal of having 75% of our eligible employees telecommute on a permanent basis. So we, just in like less than the first year, we've saved $1.3 million on our utility bills. We've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by over 5,500 tons, because the major sources of our greenhouse gas emissions were our employee commute and our buildings. So by having employees work from home and not coming into the office and requiring it to be heated and cooled and lit while they were there, we've saved money, we've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions, and oh, by the way, we've increased productivity and improved employee morale. So there are so many things that we can take our own lessons from and build on. And my subhead is if Texas can do this, you can too. But that's a way that we're measurably reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and we will be able to help the US meet its Paris commitment by doing that. So every community can do it, and we all know how to do it because we did it. So that's something I take hope from, and I'm kind of an apostle on spreading this message, encouraging everybody else to do it too, because y'all know how to do it.
That's great. Yeah, another common theme we're hearing is optimism. And I think you tend to see that, and I'm glad to hear it at the state level too, but you definitely tend to see it on the local level. I think if we weren't optimists, we probably wouldn't be doing the jobs that we do. Because we know what our communities are capable of and what our country is capable of if we're all working together on it. I think for me, one of the things that makes me optimistic about the future is when and governments, look, we all have programs and policies that we put in place, and you always hope that they work. But when you see them work, especially when they're programs around climate, and I'll give an example too. In St. Petersburg, we have something we call the solar co-op. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The city has been involved in helping to fund this program. And it's been incredibly successful. Every time the co-op opens, it's filled quickly. That makes me optimistic. When we have something we call a solar energy loan fund where we've helped seed that, because again, our state doesn't provide any assistance. And we see the popularity of it, that makes me incredibly optimistic, because that tells me that the work we're all doing, the community wants us to do it. And if we do it, they will participate with us. And that makes me optimistic about the future.
I agree with everything that was said here, but let me add one other sort of perspective. I've been coming to these COPs since, well, Copenhagen. And I've been to numerous COPs, and I feel like there's a new energy here, that the whole world is communicating, that we're trying to find solutions, share ideas, and developing countries are rethinking what their future looks like and how they're going to develop and not do it on a carbon-based solution for power and energy. That they can start with renewables and don't have to start with coal and oil and gas. So with those kinds of things and knowing that population is expanding and hearing all the ideas up here and some of the things we've been doing in my city, I'm really encouraged that I think the world is getting it and we need to keep pushing out. But I got to tell you, I think one of the reasons that even the Paris Climate Agreement came out was because mayors from around the world worked 2.5, 3 years from the Kyoto Protocol running out to the next opportunity for one to happen, which was Paris, and telling those heads of state, you need to do something. You need to agree to the science, work on solutions, not only in your own place, but work with others, because we've got to prepare this planet for a survivable future, but one that is optimistic, that has opportunity for work, for play, for water sources, for food sources, and has equity so that everybody, regardless of where they live or who they are, what their income levels are, has access to the necessities of life. And it's all of us working together that are going to make that happen. And so with all that, I've got some optimism. And I think that I'm going to have more as we watch what happens at the heads of state are here and what they agree to and how they work together to find solutions. But we at the local level, we got to be right there in their ear, telling them about it every day, every week, every month, year after year, and we can get this done.
That's wonderful. Mayors, county commissioners, state legislators, governors, they all have to be here and they all have to be pounding that drum. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here again at COP. Thank you for participating in this panel. Please join me in providing a round of applause to this great group of elected officials. Yeah, we need a picture.